Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, the place where we not only talk about what's going on in the gun world, but also how we're going to fix it together. In today's episode, I'm going to show you the raging episode of The Problem with Jon Stewart, where he eviscerates gun rights forever. We're going to walk through this, and I'm going to give you a fair warning. This is the worst example of a defense of gun rights that I've seen in a long time, and there's lots that we can learn from this. Everything will be linked in the description box below, and I cannot wait to hear what you guys think about this one. And if you are new or you're a returning viewer, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and making sure that notification bell is on. We need as many people as we can to get in the fold to help defend gun rights much better than what I'm about to show you right here. So the clip in question is from The Problem with Jon Stewart, as I mentioned in the introduction. This is a state senator from Oklahoma who decided to go on Jon Stewart, a national program, and say, we're going to defend gun rights using very well-known platitudes that if you do not have the ability to flex and adjust to what the interviewer is saying, because to Jon's credit, Jon Stewart wasn't being overly aggressive. He wasn't looking for the gotcha question. He actually had some genuine points, and this guy did not have the ability to counter them with the fact of what I'm about to show you right now. And this is basic level knowledge. This is incredibly important, and send this video out because this is what you're going to hear for the next little while, because this was not a good look for this guy from Oklahoma. But let me walk you through the first clip, because this out the gate set the entire foundation for this interview, and this guy missed it completely. Check this out.
For clarity's sake, I'm not against the Second Amendment. I don't want to ban guns. But you're saying more guns makes us more safe.
Yes.
So when we got 400 million guns in the country, we had an increase and gun deaths went up. So when exactly does this curve hit that takes it down? Would 1 billion guns do it?
Let's just run those numbers. 400 million, 50,000. You're talking about less than a fraction of not even 1%, of 100th of a percent.
But it goes up, not down.
There's so much wrong with this statement, and please watch this whole video. Jon Stewart brings a point, and it's one of the main points of a gun control argument. Deaths are going up. They've been unprecedented. We have more guns, therefore we have more deaths. The simple fact that this guy from Oklahoma missed is we are in the exact inverse of reality. I'm going to show you right now, inverse of what he's saying is reality. I'm going to show you the firearm background checks per the NICS background check system from FBI. It is going up in the last 30 years from around below 10 million to above 40 million per year. That is a dramatic incline. Now, I'm going to show you the violent death crime rate from 1990 to 21, same time period. We've gone in a dramatic curve downward. If this guy knew anything beyond the platitudes he's about to say, which there's nothing wrong with the platitudes, but you have to be able to know the data to actually counter these points, he would know that the violent death has gone down dramatically over the last 30 years while gun ownership has gone up. But he misses that boat, and he leaves the entire conversation to be dominated by Jon Stewart with, you didn't answer that question, I've now got you, let's continue. This is the important part. You have to know what you're talking about before you go on a national stage and make gun rights look like backwater stupidity. They are not. It's obvious that they are not, and that is a Second Amendment right that we have. But this guy doesn't know what he's talking about enough to counter these points, and these are base level points. Let's continue to the next one, because Jon Stewart, he's not being aggressive. He just is not getting answers to his points, and they're easy. Check this out. Second point.
But why with guns are you against bringing order?
I'm not against bringing order.
You are. You're also making it less safe for cops and for people. When the police go to a domestic call, it's the most dangerous call they can go on. In your world, if they knew that there were firearms in the house, that's a safer call. Is that what you're saying?
No, because police...
Because why?
Because police treat every situation as a potential...
But more guns makes us safer. So why don't, when the police go to a house filled with guns, why don't they breathe a sigh of relief knowing that this Second Amendment that shall not be infringed is being exercised so fruitfully in this home?
All right, so this isn't a gotcha question. Why, if there's guns in a home and there's an active violent dispute going on, why aren't guns making us more safer? It's akin to, if guns were so popular across the United States, why, when robberies occur, why shouldn't it be a problem with guns? It makes no sense on its argument, but this guy can't even counter that point. The point is not that the Second Amendment is something that supports gun rights across the United States, and when bad things happen and bad situations happen, guns are going to solve every single issue. That's not what the whole point is. The point is criminals are going to criminal. Violent disputes are going to happen. Is it a volatile situation? 1,000% is a volatile situation. That's why police approach every scenario with the utmost concern that could happen. The Second Amendment is not going to be infringed because of an outlier, because of domestic disputes. The entire point here is police roll up to domestic disputes with multiple officers because it is the most dangerous, so they can cover each other. They also get everyone out of the house so they can fully control the environment. The idea that domestic violence equates to problems going away if guns are introduced is not the point of the Second Amendment. This is a small conversation and a hypothetical, which John is trying to say, well, all guns make us all safer. That's kind of like saying, go back to my robbery argument. The entire point here is he's trying to trick him, and this guy does not have an answer. And the other thing that I want to mention on the first clip that I completely just remembered, you cannot ever make a point to say, well, yeah, guns are not going to be infringed, but that's only 50,000 deaths. You can never, ever do that. And the reason that you can never do that is because it makes you appear callous, it makes you appear disconnected and non-invested in the people's rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. You cannot ever do that. What you say in that scenario is, this is terrible. How many of those 50,000 people are suicides? See if he knows that one. It's above 50%. How many of those are gang related? How many of those are criminal related? How many of those are related to something beyond just the fact that guns exist? You cannot ever minimize the fact that people are dying because it's a terrible thing. Anyway, I'm a little disjointed on that because I forgot to say that. But let's go on to the third one. This is so frustrating that this guy missed these so hard, and it's being used as a point across the internet.
Anecdotes.
No, this is not anecdotes.
What the police say, if we had gun registration, if we were able to track purchases, they have a technology that every bullet would be stamped with an individual like a fingerprint. If we had an ATF that wasn't defunded, we would be able to enforce gun laws more effectively, and we would be able to solve gun crimes more effectively. You're against all of that.
Because the person is the threat, not the firearm, not the knife.
I get it.
The person and the individual is the one that is the concern here.
But you don't want anything that could help law enforcement or society determine whether or not a person is a good guy with a gun or a bad guy with a gun.
Even
the
law
registry
enforcement
would allow you to have much more effective background checks. So I don't understand why you won't just admit that you are making it harder for police to manage the streets by allowing all of these guns to go out without permits, without checks, and without background stuff.
All right, so this one was a little bit longer, but there's a lot to break down here. First of all, the ATF is underfunded. They just got $118 billion in the last budget. It just went through. They're not underfunded, so that's kind of a misnomer. This guy missed that one. Why are you allowing things to go through without background checks and without permits? Background checks happen on every single firearm sale in the United States. The only ones that it doesn't happen on are the illicit ones between criminals, which they cannot legally do, which goes back to the entire point. Everything that Jon Stewart is saying here is he's trying to find, in his opinion, a solution to the issues, and this guy is skirting past everything with no evidence whatsoever except the rights of the individual shall not be infringed. No kidding. The right to keep and bear arms. No kidding. You need more in a conversation than just going back to those platitudes, because someone who's fairly intelligent is going to be able to disseminate this very simply. Oh, so more guns make more safe. Why bad thing here? Then he goes into the idea of you can't have a hypothetical situation, even though he just introduced a hypothetical situation. The point here is this guy is missing every single aspect, every single avenue to all the points that we have, and is being represented as the leader of the gun control movement. Registries are terrible ideas. You can't go into a registry and expect a good outcome. Every time there's been a registry in the United States, in the world, there's always been confiscation that follows. If the police know where every single gun is and every single person owns and they know where it is by serial number, you have an entire complete list that any bad actor could then therefore go for and seize them. That's the reason that we don't do registries. But this guy's missing them completely. He was out of his league hard. And now, my final coup de grace, listen to what Jon Stewart says about voting in guns, because he traps him again with a simple solution. Check this out.
What do you have to? You have to
be on the voter rolls?
register. You have to register. So you have to register to a right. Is that an infringement?
Does the right to voting say shall not be infringed?
Oh, so this is just a semantic argument now.
No, it's not.
You believe voting rights can be infringed because it doesn't say specifically shall not be infringed.
Is it an infringement upon a 17-year-old's right to vote, since they don't have that right to vote?
No.
Oh, it's not an infringement on them?
No, absolutely not.
Why not?
Because you're the one making the argument, not me. I'm saying even rights have responsibilities, and that within those responsibilities are responsibilities and order.
All right, so in this last clip, he's going down and comparing the right to bear arms as the right to voting as the exact same. Why do you have to register for voting, but you don't have to register for a Second Amendment right? There's a lot of things here. First of all, registering for voting, because you can vote one time. The Second Amendment is not something where you get one in your lifetime and therefore you register. If you're doing a apples to apples comparison, that's a very silly argument. Also, this guy could have said, do you have to have a permit to vote? No. Why? Oh, that would be an infringement. What about a poll tax? What about, do you have to be a landowner? What about an education pass? What about those things? Because if you're saying you can all these different things and background checks for voting, why can't you do that? Because that would be unconstitutional. Exactly. The Second Amendment shall not be infringed. There's no registry because the government could come and take those. It's not the same at voting at all. Also, the idea that you have to be 18 to partake in both of these rights, you're past the age of consent. You are now an adult. The whole concept of the voting rights you have to register for, but gun rights you don't have to register for, therefore they're both rights, is a silly comparison. But what does this guy do? This guy says, yeah, but it says shall not be infringed. It doesn't say that for voting rights. That is the worst possible thing that you could ever say. I'm not trying to tear this guy apart because he's a gun rights advocate. I'm trying to point this out, that this was one of the worst, most terrible interviews for gun rights that I've ever seen, because this guy was ill prepared. He could not have a conversation on these silly examples that Jon Stewart brought forward, and he came across as diverting from the conversation, avoiding and pivoting the questions, and he came across unintelligent on what he's talking about. This was one of the worst interviews that I've ever seen, simply because this guy was not prepared. You get somebody who's fully versed in what we're talking about on this exact same interview, dramatically different outcomes. And that's what I've got for you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you on the next one. I'm Braden. See you later.